Okay, today we're watching Goji Center define what an alpha kaiju is in the Monsterverse. I don't know if I'm gonna disagree with this, but we'll find out. This could go either way, but yeah, leave a like, subscribe to Goji Center, and let's get into it. Okay, what makes a Titan an alpha?
Today on Goji Center, we will quickly showcase all alpha titans in the Monsterverse.
Oh damn, Muto Prime, hell yeah, dog.
Considered alphas, and finding common denominators to try to figure out what it is that could make any kaiju stand in this category. Pay close attention and see if you can pick up a few patterns with us. We'll be covering 6 confirmed alphas that played that role in the past, and then looking at a few other titans that could have fit this role as well, and a bit of a twist in the end. What makes a Titan an alpha is something that hasn't quite been given a definitive answer. Usually they're just given the title, and it comes in many forms.
I feel like fate plays a huge role in what becomes an alpha. A lot of these fights are super like it's like fate, you know what I mean?
Often referred to as alphas, king this, queen that, but no real reason was given as to how or why they received this title. Let's start with the first Titan
Looking like
in question,
Joe Rogan.
Kong. Kong, as we know him, is a member of a species referred to as Titanus Kong, or great apes. These were highly intelligent, colossal apes that showed capabilities of forming structured, civilized entities and adopting leadership hierarchies. Great stone structures that dwarf anything built by mankind in the modern era. Forming tribes. An understanding of crafting different kinds of weapons. Complex engineering. Clear evidence of military ranking structures involving individual troops, lieutenants, and tribes usually led by one leader.
I know it's not stated anywhere and probably very incorrect. I just always assumed like the Iwis had kind of a part with like the ancient Kong structures and stuff, because those monkeys are smart, sure, but they're not like that. Like, they're also pretty damn stupid for the most part. Most of them are, you know what I mean? Like, Kong's awesome, Scar King's great, but half those monkeys were like sniffing poop off their fingers and stuff like that.
This leader would be one who imposes order, discipline by stern command, sometimes even using oppression and fear.
Damn.
Immediately, we think of Scar King. Now, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of whether or not Scar King and Kong were the same exact species of great ape, given their different physical appearance, but they did both show traits of leadership and command. Which is why, immediately, both of these did not get along at all. What can we get out of all of this? And how do these great apes have the title of Alpha? Unlike other titans like Godzilla, Ghidorah, Rodan, Shimo, titans that do have unique biological traits such as biovolcanic, bioelectrical, or bionuclear, great apes do have a hidden edge that some of the other titans do not have. And that edge is an aspect of intelligence that other titans lack.
I always thought their edge was just thumbs. Like, they could grab stuff. They could utilize the world around them as weapons. It's a total freaking game changer that, like, most other kaijus can't do.
There isn't a real term for this, so we'll have to suggest one. Civilizational intelligence.
Ooh.
An umbrella term for other forms of problem-solving abilities, such as technological, strategic, collective, and civic intelligence.
Monkey.
All the same elements that made us, humans, the dominant species in a planet full of hundreds of thousands of animals that could kill or outlive us. For instance, no other species on the planet has ever been able to craft more complex tools like axes, smelt metal, and forge swords, much less create firearms and then roll around in tanks, ships, and aircraft. Conquering all 3 battle domains better than any apex predator in history. That's right, folks. That's what made us the world's apex species, and you too can continue to dominate the battlefield with these pinnacles of human combat technological achievement.
That was a beautiful segue right there. Oh my god.
Large-scale multiplayer action game of all time.
Well done.
War Thunder.
You gotta support the sponsors. It pays for the channel.
Expanded more with the arrival of the French Jaguar, Chieftain.
Oh, now the French want to make weapons. No, they did help us take America. Isn't War Thunder that game where like the fan base is consistently stealing high-grade military secrets and just posting them publicly? Hilarious freaking community right there.
The same element under the civilizational edge that gave great apes the power to fight against powerful titans like Godzilla and bring forth potential alphas. That's right, folks. Great apes are seen using technology, cunning, and even
dude. Ew. Look at that misplaced boob right.
Other elements to control a more powerful individual and impose power by proxy. This was the case with Scar King and Shimo, but not all members of the great apes can become alpha titans. This guy certainly wasn't alpha material, and this one either. It's how they used the attributes of their own species that push individuals such as Kong, Scar King, and potentially even Zuko to hold the title of
I was gonna say
Alpha.
Zuko for
Both
sure.
Kong and Scar King were depicted as titans that ruled over a vast realm. In the end of Godzilla vs. Kong, it was established that Kong's realm was the Hollow Earth, while Godzilla took care of the surface. That was until Scar King showed up, who, by the way, was the ruler of the subterranean Hollow Earth realm and sought to expand his empire. But being an alpha, at least in the lore of the Monsterverse, doesn't always require you to partake and take a leadership role in a societal
His dad
species.
would have been an alpha for
Sometimes
sure.
the role
Or
the
would he?
Titan fulfills in world balance and the relations you form with other kaiju can also grant that title. A perfect example of this is the Titanus Mosura Titan species, more commonly known as Mothra, or Mothras now, since it has been confirmed that there have been many incarnations of these in the Monsterverse timeline. Referred to as the Queen of the Monsters, Mothra is often depicted as a benevolent force of nature, with statements from the developers of King of the Monsters as a kaiju whose essence is a binding harmony with nature, with even the sonar calls emitted by Mothra carefully crafted by the sound designers to sound like or evoke a sense of harmony with the Earth itself. She's a queen because she rules in conjunction with the King of the Monsters, and we all know who that is. But unlike the great apes that leverage their civilizational intelligence and technological edge to climb to the ranks of Alpha, Mothra's status as Alpha is defined more on the role she takes during world cataclysms and which side of the fight she's in. As the closest ally of Godzilla, a confirmed Alpha, and one who is portrayed to keep the balance of power in check on planet Earth, Mothra is a perfect aerial auxiliary for a terrestrial and aquatic kaiju.
I guess I'm confused what makes Titanus, Mothra, and Alpha like this specific rendition, because I would expect an Alpha to also be able to go around and beat up other kaiju like rather easily, to be honest. Like just the way Godzilla easily kills Scylla, I don't think Mothra could do that to any kaiju, but I do obviously see her as just like above the food chain. She's sort of just like a goddess. It's like hard to describe, but I can't really think of any kaiju she could solo any like rival Alpha. No way.
She is also aligned with mostly the same philosophy as the G-Man when it comes to the preservation of Earth. But in a world of powerful titans equipped with special superpowers, weather and geologic manipulation abilities, and superheated weaponry, Mothra also shares this same attribute with many other Alphas and comes equipped with both a formidable set of melee weapons and the God Ray ability.
Yeah, I was gonna say, she does beat Rodan, and like someone's gonna comment that down below, but they nerfed the hell out of Rodan, bro. Like, according to his stats, he could fly at like freaking multiple Mach speeds, all this crazy stuff. He should have been a nightmare for Mothra, but he's just like gliding around, getting webbed up. I don't know if Titanus Rodan actually even is an Alpha in this, so that's like kind of a silly comparison, but even there, I feel like he just got nerfed in that fight.
This not only serves as a flashbang of Titan proportions, but was also seen to send shockwaves powerful enough to send Titans like Godzilla flying across the map. Now, whether or not the incarnation
Across
of
the map,
Mothra
he fell
in King
over.
of the Monsters had this ability is debatable. However, Mothra's role as protector and symbiotic relationship with Godzilla as his most important auxiliary grants her kind the title of...
I mean, for God's sake, she got one-shotted by Monster Zero. Obviously, she was dealing with some other stuff, but just like one gravity beam blast, like freaking evaporated her. Like, come on.
Alpha species. Transitioning from studying the Queen of the Monsters, let's now talk about her ally, Godzilla. Apart from being one of the most powerful titans in this franchise with both dominant physical and atomic prowess, the role he takes is equally as meaningful. The driving force that influences Godzilla's behavior, decision-making, and overall philosophy is equilibrium. What does this imply? Benevolence and malevolence are common behavioral traits in this franchise, a concept established in King of the Monsters, with many kaiju being labeled as benevolent, such as the case of Behemoth and Methuselah, and other kaiju labeled as destroyers, example, Amulek, Tiamat, and even Rodan. Some kaiju, like Amulek, instill negative effects on the surrounding flora. Scylla, for instance, could reverse the effects of global warming on the ice caps, but could just as easily make them worse, and was seen spreading radioactive pollution around many times. Both of these were defeated by Godzilla, or in the case of Scylla, she was killed. These kaiju face-offs showcase Godzilla's tendency to rush out and keep these destroyers in check. But there are some interesting exceptions. Long viewers of the channel would remember our breakdown of Titanus Nikika, one who is labeled as a destroyer and is responsible for the destruction of an entire monarch base. Despite this, Godzilla went out of his way to rescue this monster from a fleet of Titan traffickers. Whatever it was that made Nikika a destroyer, Godzilla still looks at the bigger picture and kept this one alive, as this Titan may be be useful in the future.
Yeah, I feel like if you destroy all of the destroyers, then there's no longer equilibrium. It's like the Jedi's always talking about bringing balance to the Force, but their idea of bringing balance was just eliminating all the evil sides so there would be no balance, and then the whole thing kind of backfired in their face. You gotta have evil.
Multifaceted kaiju like Scylla, a default destroyer who can also reverse negative effects of global warming on ice caps, was spared in an initial skirmish on the condition that she submits. Amulek was left alive, perhaps for a similar reason. Tiamat's case, a bit odd, but probably a casualty in the name of the greater good.
It was a bit odd. I feel like Amulek also survived because it wasn't honest. It wasn't destroying the world. It was just beating the crap out of Behemoth, and Godzilla just went to defend Behemoth. So killing one kaiju to defend another to keep the peace of no kaiju dying would not make sense.
A Titan who was spared in a previous first skirmish, but then killed off almost instantly in GXK after she evolved and was told to hibernate instead. And
which was a little weird, but cool.
The energy housed in her lair to then save the planet. So what makes this Godzilla an Alpha Titan? Possibly the only kaiju with the necessary biological, physical, and intellectual attributes to fit the role of Warden of Equilibrium better than the vast majority of other Titan species. Now, does this imply that the other Gojira specimens, like Dagon, were also Alpha Titans? Perhaps, but nowhere near as adequate as the present-day G-Man. So far, all the Alpha Titans we discuss take a leadership or affiliate leader role in this global Titan ecosystem. They all have a special ability that helps them maintain some sort of dominance over their niche. And interestingly, these three Titans were the only ones that refused to submit to the next Titan we're about to discuss, a monster that might redefine what an Alpha can be. Monster Zero, or Ghidorah, often preceded with the word king, is possibly the most powerful force of evil ever seen in this franchise so far. We refrained from saying that all Alpha Titans were exclusively brought forth by the planets, especially with Dr. Emma Russell stating that Titans are the fever that combats any infection or threat to planet Earth. Ghidorah, being a Titan from extraterrestrial origins, cannot be put in the same bucket as Godzilla, Rodan, Kong, or Mothra. Its body composition and quick regeneration abilities were aspects of this Titan that set it apart from the other kaiju. So much so that not even the Oxygen Destroyer, arguably one of the most lethal weapons created by mankind, did not affect Ghidorah as much as it affected Godzilla.
Now that I think about it, the government would be so freaking on point with we'd be sending probes out to every corner of space like every day looking for the freaking origin of where that Monster Zero came from. It's kind of weird they kind of brushed over that. That would be such a monstrous concern. Like, is there more coming? Is there a planet with like thousands of them? Are they on their way? Yeah, like why don't we focus on that a little?
So, what else makes this one unique? Perhaps telepathy? Not quite. Even though it was implied in GVK that Ghidorah's heads communicate telepathically, despite sharing the same nervous system, and emitting a call to all the Titans that traveled faster than the speed of sound, making every single one of them wake up at the exact same time, this isn't so unique to Ghidorah. Psychic phenomena is something seen in many forms in the franchise, but it's actually an attribute seen used by every Titan previously mentioned on this list, and something that is used by the others that we're about to discuss. Even the Iwi race can leverage this phenomena, communicating without words and only with their minds. Godzilla picking up signals from fantastical crystal hollow earth chimes. Kong being able to detect other nearby alphas. Scar King leveraging a crystal to send commands and emotional distress to Shimo. The new Titan Yugoth able to control other monsters to do its bidding. Telepathy still being an important element in how commands were communicated using a psychic neural link between brain and the mech. The list goes on and on. But it is a common denominator here. What makes this one different is its resolve, and once again, his role on the planet. Clearly, Ghidorah was driven by world domination and terraforming of the planet. Everything it flew over, destroyed. Anyone who did not submit, he killed or subdued. This again lays bare another common denominator here, which is dominion. All Titans discussed so far seek to dominate a certain aspect. For Ghidorah, it may be controlling the Titans and molding the world to his liking. For Godzilla, it is to control all the Titans in order to keep equilibrium. For Kong, it was to keep Skull Island from becoming a predatory wasteland for other super species and keeping the human inhabitants safe. For Mothra to help Godzilla keep balance. And for Scar King to one day be the king of the surface world. Despite not being from Earth, Ghidorah displayed these same characteristics. And coupled with his insane powers and physical build, Ghidorah more than fits the bill to be considered an Alpha Titan. Ghidorah was was massive, but certainly was not the biggest, as seen in Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. There was another big one laying around and made us realize something interesting about Alpha Titans. No matter how large or powerful, there might always be a way to defeat and subdue an existing Alpha Kaiju. Shimo, the Ice Titan from Hollow Earth, was introduced to us as a prisoner of war. As explained in another video, Shimo was very likely captured or subdued by Scar King and his army after Godzilla seemingly defeated this tribe by trapping them in a subterranean realm. Now, the film does not explicitly mention that Shimo was an Alpha in the past, but the novel does suggest that she might have been Alpha before, at least for a brief period.
It's weird that she's just not automatically considered to be an alpha. Like, I understand she's lacking a few traits and she was a prisoner, but she's freaking huge and can defeat every kaiju except Godzilla. It's just weird how she's not considered an alpha, but Mothra automatically is.
Could she? Yes, actually. Apart from this mysterious skeleton we've talked about before, Shimo stands as the biggest titan seen so far in the Monsterverse. Almost as tall as evolved Godzilla while standing on all fours, and towering over Ghidorah as a biped. Armed with a frostbite blast that could freeze other titans in seconds, or unleash a worldwide climate-altering event that could reset the global ecology, we are looking at one of the most powerful monsters on this list. Allegedly the one that caused the last ice age, it's clear that Shimo at some point made the decision to freeze the Earth, possibly as a form of reset. Whether Godzilla had anything to do with this decision-making is debatable, but Shimo certainly checks all the boxes to be—
I'm getting like a Lugia vibe now. Like, she's just like, that's her natural thing, is she has to make sure the Earth goes through its natural, or I guess they're not natural cycles if she's doing it. I don't know, bro, it's mystical.
Able to become an alpha. If you're paying attention, we're now transitioning from confirmed alpha kaijus to monsters with the potential to become alphas. Shimo is an interesting case because despite the book alluding to the idea that she was once an alpha, at the end of GXK, we see her obey a command from Godzilla to kill Scar King. Was this her obeying Godzilla, respecting his authority? Or was this just Godzilla allowing her to have the chance to avenge herself against the monkey devil? Could be both. Worth noting that in a deleted scene, Shimo was actually shown to bow to Godzilla afterwards, acknowledging him as the Alpha. This was likely left out because seeing another Alpha bow to another Alpha in the presence of another Alpha was going to be a little weird for Kong, especially given that Kong was then going to take Shimo back with him at the end. Shimo certainly is capable of becoming one, but never displayed that leadership element that Kong, Scar King, Godzilla, Mothra, and Ghidorah have. So, this one's in the middle. Another example of a titan species that could bring forth what some may consider an alpha is the Muto species. Now, this one is a bit tricky because unlike the great apes who have to contest for this title as king, the Muto's entire life cycle, biology, and the way their quote-unquote society works really only yields one end result: the development of one Muto Prime. This individual is said to emerge after successfully surviving many encounters with other female Mutos and successfully metamorphosing to this state. Undoubtedly the most powerful form of Muto, but still not 100% clear on whether this title of Muto Prime implies a true leadership role or just a status role.
I always saw the Mutos as like nature's way of keeping the Godzilla population in check. This is back in the older comics, but when there was like multiple, when there was Dagon and stuff, other Godzillas had existed. I'm pretty sure now there was always just one Godzilla, because now that's like the rule Toho has. It's just because everything about them is built to basically counter Godzilla specifically. Like their sonic roar could sync up the frequency to exactly match their dorsal spikes to shatter Godzilla's dorsal spikes. They're completely armored on top and basically atomic breath proof unless you flip them over. Like they're just perfectly built to fight Godzillas.
Or just the responsibility of starting the Muto life cycle again and ensuring the preservation of their own species. So this one's a bit debatable, but important to bring up nonetheless. Could it become an alpha of other Titan species? It certainly is powerful enough to put up an extremely good
I don't think it would want to.
Kaiju like Godzilla, Mothra, and great apes. And seeing another Queen Muto acknowledge another alpha does imply that they technically could. But whether they are alpha material will depend on how well they can enforce their dominion. This one is a maybe, especially after the Apple series Monarch Legacy of Monsters seemingly retconned Muto Prime.
So
we
lame,
all
dude.
know about the big angry bird, Rodan, and his 3 attempts at pecking at alphas, with results amounting to an embarrassing net loss.
The comic did also state Muto Prime could basically super travel like underground using the tectonic, like it was literally strong enough to move the tectonic plates on its own, causing math earthquakes. I can't speak. I'm so pissed off they retconned it.
It took 2 ass whoopings from 2 alphas for Rodan to finally realize the 3rd challenge was likely also not going to go well. However, this does not
Nerfed
mean
my
that
boy.
Rodan is permanently
Nerfed him.
out of consideration. This guy certainly can brew up motivation to face alphas, himself being actually quite powerful with some pretty destructive abilities. Cyclonic drifts, volcano agrokinesis, supersonic flying speeds, etc. If we do see Rodan fighting an alpha again in any hope that it might win and attain a real title, it would have to be against Godzilla, and it will need to go through some serious evolution.
See, my thing with Rodan is, according to Google, he can fly freaking ridiculously fast. The world is big, dude. He could just kind of destroy a city and leave before Godzilla gets there and just kind of avoid him for the rest of his life and honestly live still a pretty good free life.
Can he? We're going to say he might. Tiamat was another Titan that went through an evolutionary process using a stockpile of solar radiation. So, if Tiamat can, Rodan just might be able to pull the same stunt. Speaking of Tiamat, this is an exceptionally powerful monster that actually fought against the G-Man in the graphic novel Godzilla Dominion, and put through a bit of a struggle.
Whooped his ass,
she
too.
was defeated, and Godzilla once again made the opponents bow. Immediately after, Godzilla lets out an alpha call to send everyone else, including Tiamat, to sleep.
I need to clarify what I just said. Whooped Godzilla's butt. It was beating the crap out of Godzilla till they went on dry land and then Godzilla beat it up. But like the emphasis on Tiamat's like razor sharp body slicing through Godzilla just sounded so gnarly. And then he just gets she just gets put down so effortlessly in the movie. I'm okay with her dying. I just expected a little more.
Interestingly, this was the same exact sequence of events that happened when Rodan lost versus Ghidorah. A challenger pulls up to an Alpha Titan. The challenger loses, and the Alpha proceeds to let out an Alpha call. Had Tiamat won this duel, she would have possibly cemented herself as the next queen. But the next and last contender we're about to discuss was literally seconds away from establishing a new dominion of terror, and perhaps doom for the remaining Titans. Mechagodzilla is a special category of its own. Not really a biological titan, but rather a mech using biomimicry, with some trippy sci-fi concepts involving neural telepathic links and supernatural elements. Controlled by a human, but also forming a neural link with traces of Ghidorah's neural elements to then control Mechagodzilla. This turned out to be a grave miscalculation from Apex Cybernetics, as we saw Ghidorah ultimately take control of the mech and go rogue. But the reason we're adding this machine to the list of alphas is because of one interesting detail. Humans. Surprise, surprise. And this is actually a detail that was highly overlooked in Godzilla King of the Monsters. Listen closely.
We think Emma activated the Orca somewhere near Boston. That's why Ghidorah and Godzilla are both headed that way now. But we haven't been able to pinpoint the exact location without the missing piece of the Orca signal.
I've got the missing piece.
It's Godzilla, right?
Oh yeah, it was humans.
We already tried.
Not Godzilla.
Totally forgot.
It's us.
What do you mean, us?
Emma combined the bioacoustics of Godzilla with a human. That's how she made the signal for the Orca. The creatures just think it's another apex predator.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, we are a bunch of horny, murderous carnivores.
For context, a big plot-driving element in this film was the Orca, a device capable of amplifying something called alpha signals, frequencies that Titans understood. A Titan hears it, and it either obeys it, or it causes it to go apeshit. Stay with us here. At the end of the film, Madison stole the Orca and let out alpha blasts that caused all Titans around the world to stop attacking cities. Ghidorah heard it and immediately thought it was another alpha. This same call also attracted Godzilla, turning Boston into the final battleground. This clip reveals that a huge, important element in creating these alpha frequencies was adding bioacoustics of humans. Titans hear it, and they think it's another Alpha Titan letting out signals, implying that the human race in itself has common denominators with Alpha Titans. A big driving factor in the advancement
we are
of
like
our
the
species
alpha.
are the same reasons why some of these kaiju are alphas. Our ability to lead and form systems, civilization, order, disorder, a drive to dominate, conquer, and destroy, or a drive to protect and preserve. The practice of using destructive power to enforce peace and tyranny. This concept in the movie should have been fleshed out more, and Colonel Diane Foster's dismissive comment on the matter actually left us with a sour taste.
The creatures just think it's another apex predator.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, we are a bunch of horny, murderous carnivores.
Yeah, that's real poetic. Now what?
But back to Mechagodzilla. This exact combination of mechanized titan and human control,
God, it's
and
so
the
amazing.
implication that there was an Orca-like device inside Mechagodzilla, is the criteria necessary for us to consider Mechagodzilla in today's list. Mentioned in the book and in the film, this was humanity's way to throw their hat in the ring to contest for the title of Alpha.
Man, Mechagodzilla was so cool. I forgot how freaking good this movie was. I gotta go watch it. Like, I loved Shimo and Scar King. That whole movie was freaking awesome. But like this, dude, the evilness of Mechagodzilla coming out of that Apex factory, like in the mountain, just decimating that city. That was evil as hell. This thing was so evil, like it legit laughed after it killed thousands of people. Like, that's crazy.
Defeating Godzilla and then proceeding to embark on a Titan elimination jihad to establish humanity once again as the apex species. For us to contend with Kaiju, we became Kaiju.
He would have killed Kong here too perfectly. Biggest plot armor I've ever seen. I love Kong so much, but spilling liquid on a keyboard, frying the entire thing is so stupid, bro. Not even like the small amount of whiskey you could fit in a freaking flask. God, they did my boy so wrong in this.
And that is what Mechagodzilla actually was. So, to settle this once and for all, being an alpha goes far beyond raw strength and prowess. A true alpha must demonstrate leadership, commanding or influencing other titans. They must wield a defining advantage to enforce their influence, whether that advantage is sheer intelligence, a singular ability, or both. They must occupy a specific ecological niche, benevolent or malevolent, protector or tyrant. But when you strip away all the complexity, it all converges into a single, undeniable force. The same force that has shaped every chapter of history. Control.
Ooh.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, has always been and will continue to be the ultimate prize. Contested fiercely in the Monsterverse, and just as fiercely in our own world.
That is why Rodan's not an alpha. He doesn't really control anything. He's just an asshole, but he's so lovable. He's like my favorite kaiju in the Monsterverse, but unfortunately, he just doesn't have that great of influence. If he said something, no other kaiju would listen. And why should they? But I do love him. This was a good video. I agree with all of it completely. I do just am pissed off that Muto Prime isn't canon anymore. It was so cool, dude. I don't know if it's all just Toho dropping rules or just like the writers of separate things not communicating. Like Monarch, that TV show was all right. It was the Godzilla scenes were awesome. The human scenes, some of the worst human scenes I've ever seen in modern television. But that show wasn't worth losing Muto Primes altogether. So upsetting, bro. Oh my god. But yeah, leave a like, subscribe for more Godzilla stuff, subscribe to Goshi Center down below, and I'll see you next time.